Stock market legend Andrè Kostolany and his investment strategy. Early life. Andrè Kostolany was one of the most important figures in the world financial markets. He was an American-Hungarian financial expert, trader and journalist. Kostolany was born in Hungary and lived in France, the United States, Germany, Switzerland, and Austria during his life. The most visited places are Paris, the French Riviera and Munich. He personally referred to Paris as his home, where he had lived since 1924. However, until his death he felt patriotic to Hungary. He originally wanted to become an art critic after studying art history and philosophy in Budapest. However, thanks to a friend of his father's, he entered the world of finance and the stock market. He soon discovered his passion and talent for this market and achieved his first success in the 1920s on the Paris Stock Exchange. At the age of 30 he was the managing director, president and majority shareholder of WWII financing company. Although he had some setbacks, he still recovered and managed to rebuild his fortune. In addition to his big stock market hits, he wrote numerous books that have been translated into several languages and have become international bestsellers. He continued to write for several of the leading German and French financial magazines and gave lectures around the world until his death. Over the years he has received various awards for his accomplishments. Entry of the LEGNED into the stock market. Kostolany's career path was marked by a coincidence, in which a friend of Kostolany's father had a significant influence on Kostolany's development. Kostolany's parents visited an old school friend of Kostolany's father, Mr. Alexander. He was one of the leading figures on the Paris Stock Exchange and owned a trading company with his brother. When Mr. Alexander learned that Kostolany was studying philosophy and art history, he offered to take him under his wing and train him. That is why Kostolany went to Paris. This incident underscores the idea of incorporating granovetter. Kostolany likes to talk about Mr. Alexander. He describes him as a very honest, serious and professional dealer, the perfect dealer. Kostolany says that while his salary was low, he suited his activities as a director, but it was low anyway. The experience he gained there was worth much more than that. Most important thing, I learned how to get clients. Alexander and his brother were absolute experts who knew all the tricks of the trade. After leaving Mr. Alexander and working as a merchant, he said, "The acquisition was never difficult for me, as I had the opportunity to look down on Mr. Alexander, the absolute owner of the business, customer acquisition." His success in the European stock markets was a great miracle and his theory was seen as a symbol of authority. Andrè Kostolany is the uncrowned king of the German stock market. German investors, experts and media journalists, who often use his views on the stock market as the basis for determining their own course of action or analyzing published articles. His speculative career since adolescence involved in stocks after Andrè Kostolany as a drug addiction. How deeply fascinated by the stimulus and risk of speculation, almost 80 years, the time he dealt with all kinds of stocks, bonds, currencies, futures and other commodities, but the heat never tires. He himself has been with speculators and is proud of it. His nice profession begins after several years of contact in stock market. Andrè Kostolany is like drug addiction. Since then he has been deeply fascinated by speculative simulation and risk. For almost 80 years he has to deal with all kinds of stocks and bonds, currencies, futures and other commodities, and you do not like these things tired, also called a speculator. In 1929, Kostolany made great profits. After the German invasion in 1940, he left Paris for New York, where he lived for 10 years. Before fleeing, he was asked about his political orientation and was often quoted as saying that my brain is on the right, my heart on the left, but my money is already in the United States, approximately $200,000, that's a few $1,000,000 today. In the USA he became the main shareholder of an investment company, WWII financing company. After his stay in the United States, he returned to Paris, where he met his wife and settled in, although he never had children. Concerned about the next steps in his life, he began, on the advice of a psychologist, to write books on investments, markets, economics, and personal anecdotes that he had accumulated during his life. I think the number of his books published by him is more than 10, but unfortunately not in English that I know of, mainly in Europe and some Asian languages. Following the publication of his regular column, more than 400 articles, in the German magazine, Capital, he achieved celebrity status. He has often appeared on German television shows on current business and market. Kostolany divided his time between Paris, Munich and the French Riviera. In addition to his numerous successes, he also founded a German investment company that still exists today. While he gained enough passion at the age of 35, that doesn't mean his investments are going well. After World War II, he invested heavily in the reconstruction of Germany, and later in the economic recovery, of which he had great wealth. On the other hand, he had been ruined twice. He also admitted to being opportunistic 100 times, as long as he succeeds 51 times, even though he is happy. But also because of his vast experience, he has exceptional vision and judgment and continues to accumulate wealth. Also, his parents, who lost everything in World War II, can enjoy his old age peacefully in Switzerland. In his books, he often referred to the alternating interaction between the group of quiet, calm and collected investors, on the one hand, and nervous and terrified fans, on the other. If you have steady hands, you buy cheap. These people have time and money, which also strengthens the nerves. Stand your ground, don't get confused by the ups and downs of the market, and know exactly what you are doing. They act at the right time, they buy below and sell above or at least close enough. I wish I had steady hands. When others panic, desperate, or simply because everyone else seems to be dating, they buy. The company's hands will be sold again at a huge profit when the market turns around again. And who are they selling to? With shaking hands, of course, the nervous fries with his borrowed money and his nasty cocktail, which includes both loss aversions and regrets. Shaky drivers are anything but doers and agitators, who tend to pile up on the freight car when the train has already left the station. Then you jump off the train out of control in the middle of an accident. Always be afraid, never panic. Andrè Kostolany. Firm or Shaky Hands Investment Theory by Andrè Kostolany. The theory highlights a basic principle behind investing in stocks. It's really not for everyone, not for the more speculative side. Almost everyone should have a reasonable portion of their money in stocks, but for the average citizen, just a kind of broad-based ETF without fancy speculation. Only those who have the proper psychological constitution and sufficient resources can really play and take risks. Only these people will work with a steady hand, patience, peace of mind, and all the other things that make high-risk investments successful. And that certainly includes a good technical and factual understanding of stocks and the markets themselves. It's not just about being cool. In other words, self-awareness is extremely important in the investment industry. You need to know what to fidget with, understand your own mental limits, and be aware of your cognitive biases. And you need to know what you could really lose from your investments and determine if it is profitable. If your hands are going to shake, you're missing it. What kind of hands do you have? The speculative stock market, where only a few individual stocks are traded, is not for everyone. This is especially true for large portions of your wealth, but even with smaller amounts, you need a steady hand and head if you want to get it right and sleep well. All investors should take some risk, but real speculation is not for the faint of heart, or should it be, shy. To become successful, follow these golden words from the stock market legend. We have put together some of his thoughts on investing, markets, economics and psychology, etc., which I found interesting. You will see that many of his opinions are very close to those of famous value investors. Regarding optimism, those who do not believe in miracles are unrealistic, and, if I were young enough, say 70, I would have found the school of optimists, and, I don't know what tomorrow will bring me, but when I am over 70 years of experience I know what happened yesterday and what happens today. Most of my colleagues don't even know. Regarding the value of money, from one point of view, money is important to me, it gives me independence. Independence means that if someone doesn't suit me, I can tell them to go hiking. I don't have a boss, employee, client or client to please. I am an independent man. On the short-term unpredictability of the stock market, the relationship between the stock market and the economy is like a man taking his dog for a walk. It is very difficult to determine the direction of the dog, which can be easily distracted. The dog sometimes runs, slows down, or just runs randomly, but eventually the dog and the owner arrive at the same place. While the owner runs 1 kilometer, the dog runs 3 to 4 more times. The dog is the purse and the owner is the economy. On the weighing and voting machine, on the stock market, it all depends on whether there are more fools than titles or more titles than fools. On being contrarian, the short and medium-term prospects for the stock market are 90% influenced by the psychology of the participants. The stock market is nothing more than the alternation of paper movements of weak hands. Strong hands. The market will behave differently depending on whether stocks are in weak or strong hands. When the stock market falls positively to good news, newspapers are in weak hands. When it starts to rise despite bad news, newspapers are in strong hands. When the stock market an accident is imminent at parties, at work, at bus stops. I can tell you that the more people approach me on the streets on the other side of the markets, the more anxious I get. On the success in the market, 4 things are needed to be successful in the speculator. I. A thought or an idea. E. A belief or conviction. E. Money. And IV. Patience. How to invest in the markets and get rich. I stop tipping others, but if I can make a recommendation, an investor should go to a pharmacy first and buy large doses. Sleeping pills. After completing this task, I should buy a high-quality portfolio of stocks and then fall asleep for many years. Otherwise, the inexperienced investor's emotions will be distracted by market volatility. His recommendation to speculate in the market: whoever has a lot of money to speculate should, whoever has little money should not, and whoever does not have money should. Regarding success and failure, 49% of my speculations went wrong, while I only acted correctly with the remaining 51%. The result is the difference of 2%. And luck is even more important in the stock market. I cannot attribute my success to intelligence, but to luck. Of course, I had ideas or visions that made me earn money, and I also had less successful moments when I lost, but in the end the balance was positive. Successful speculation: in 1946 I bought German government bonds in US dollars, British pounds and Swiss francs. This included 5.5% French franc youth bonds that you could have bought for 25% of their face value at the time. I loaded the bonds because I was convinced that the post-war First Chancellor Konrad Adenauer would do anything to restore Germany's credibility, which turned out to be the right decision. These securities were appreciated and repurchased at 35,000 Swiss francs. His dying wish was to be able to write the first article in the January 2000 issue of Capital magazine. Unfortunately, after a very long and colorful life, he passed away in September 1999 at the age of 93. You can read his obituary here. There is a very nice television commercial that was filmed in Budapest where he appears. It is a short video with an important life lesson at the end. We highly recommend it.